We are delighted and honored to have on today's program a legend and an icon, and I call him also a very dear friend. We're honored to have Voza Rivers, chairman and co-founder of the Harlem Arts Alliance, as well as he's the executive producer and one of the co-members of the Heritage Group. You are the executive producer of Gertrude Jeanette's Hatley Players. The list goes on, so you could correct me because this is not live. But I can never keep up with all of the many titles that you have because you just got your hands in so much. I said, gee, I don't know how you manage it all.
There is a perception that I do everything by myself, that I'm doing all of these things, but there is no way possible to not have people that you work with who also are invested in the journey. While my name may be out front and I become the picture, I do share my responsibility with a group of people, advisors, assistants, corporate people that I can call to get ideas from. But most importantly, it's not a one-man operation. I have been fortunate to have an assistant, Lainey Cook, who's been with me for 30 years. I have a partner on all the film things we've done, and that's Jamal Joseph. And we've been together since 1997 when he came out of prison, and he handles all of the film projects that we have accomplished and presented totaling over 51 films. I have a partner in Japan who arranges and helps market and promote all of the things that I do in Japan. I have another partner in South Africa whose performances I help market and promote. And we were so successful with that relationship that his South African company has me as the head of the United States company, Committed Artists, US, and being responsible for a lot of the plays and bookings for that particular entity. So in each instance, when you see the things that I'm involved in, it's not just me, it's a opportunity to have me expose my audiences to the various components of people that I work with. So it is not just me, and this has been going on for decades that I've been working with people, and now they are shining their own lights, and you'll probably hear about them shortly in terms of the things that they're doing.
Yes. Well, I think the main thing which makes you so unique and your contemporaries like Woody King is that you are the glue that can bring it all together. Like you said, partnerships. That's probably what I would think of most when I think of you. Not only, of course, your accomplishments in theater, which, as I said, is much too long to list, but your ability to work with all these different people and institutions and develop these partnerships, which I just don't think they could exist without you. So I want to talk about this major festival of sorts that is being presented in celebration of Harlem Arts Advocacy Month, and also speak to its inception through the Harlem Arts Alliance. For those people who are not familiar with the Harlem Arts Alliance, I think it's important to say when and why it was established and its mission. So we have context of why this Harlem Arts Advocacy Month was created.
So Harlem Arts Alliance grew out of a conversation that I had supported in the late 19 90s, 1997, 98, where there were art organizers in Harlem who wanted to create a art organization for the local not-for-profit theaters, for the local artists, the local performing and visual artists and musicians and directors, dance companies, and they would have monthly meetings. Out of that, out of those early conversations, we started centering more around the advocacy as opposed to being an organization with members doing a lot of different things independently, but the only dependent opportunity they had were coming out to monthly meetings. And that's what we started. It was almost like a social activity. When after 4 years of those kind of informal meetings, the organizers transitioned on that was responsible for those meetings. And when I say transition on, they actually died.
Right.
And I made a decision that I would love to be able to continue the work. And I reached out to the Upper Manhattan Empowerment Zone to have a conversation on them trying to give us some direction on how to continue this work that the others had created. And they thought about it and said that they would like to call a meeting of some of those organizations that were involved in these earlier meetings and see and listen and understand exactly where they could be helpful. And so September 10th, 2001, we met at the Upper Manhattan Empowerment Zone's office, which was located at 290 Lenox Avenue. What's unique about 290 Lenox Avenue is that in the 40s, that building had a performing arts center in it in the 1940s. In the 1960s, Roger Furman built his first theater in that same building on the top floor of 290 Lenox Avenue. Mm-hmm. And 290 Lenox Avenue became our home. And that's where Roger taught me how to focus lights, paint sets, and do all that kind of work. Having the meeting in 2001 at the Empowerment Zone's headquarters, again, made the connection that all of these things are not by chance, it's all connected. So now I'm in a meeting about the Harlem Arts Alliance creating a art service organization. I'm with the Lower Manhattan Culture Council, whose headquarters are in the same physical space that our theater was in. Mm-hmm. And out of that, we decided that we wanted to create the Harlem Arts Alliance that would give us a small grant to continue organizing and becoming a formidable art service organization. That was September 10th, 2001. The next day was September 11th, 2001, and the world became upside down. That was when the World Trade Center was destroyed, and that a lot of the buildings south of Canal Street were also destroyed with the attacks. The next meeting that we had about a conversation was the following month, the first Monday in October. And at that meeting, we talked about what had just happened a month earlier with the World Trade Center and what we were trying to accomplish the day before the bombing of the World Trade Center. And knowing what that information was like, we knew that it was important that we could at least could continue. And it was having that meeting in October with about 20 plus odd people. Then we had a meeting in November with 50 plus odd people. We had a meeting in December with 60, 70 people. And before we knew it, we had a monthly meeting the first Monday of each month at the Empowerment Zone. They were hosting the meetings, and we were just growing. People were coming out of the woodworks and say, yes, we need an art service organization. And we have kept the art service organization going all of these years. At the height of a Harlem Arts Alliance, an art service organization with membership, we had over 850 members. So we had colleges and universities, we had theater companies, dance companies, filmmakers, directors, choreographers, all aspects of the cultural practitioners, what they were doing in each of their areas of expertise. And they enjoy meeting others, the visual artists and the dance community sitting in the same room, talking about common interests. And we watched the Harlem Arts Alliance grow. We had Columbia University film students film all of our meetings. We also had Kwame Broadway, another who has an exhibit right now at the New York Historical Society, but he was our official photographer for the Harlem Arts Alliance, and he had his own TV program, and a lot of our meetings were shown on his network. So we watched over the years that institution grow. Inez Dickens, who was a city council member, loved the idea of what we were doing in arts and culture, and made it possible to get a resolution in and financial support for what we were doing. But the resolution said simply that we should have a monthly meeting, which we were doing, but also have a week of activities highlighting some of the members. So 3 years later, we created something called Harlem Arts Alliance Advocacy Week, and we created a calendar of events, and we circulated it all throughout the city, and we got extremely good press around what we were doing. And thanks to you and your publication, you were there during that time, making sure that you covered a lot of our activities. Through that relationship, fast forward, the challenges for getting funds was harder. We weren't a sexy organization. We weren't the Apollo Theater with their big brand. We weren't the Harlem School of the Arts with their charismatic founder. We weren't the Dance Theater of Harlem with its illustrious board of directors or Harlem School of the Arts. We were an art service organization under the radar, bringing what I call cultural practitioners together. But we stayed the course, and we expanded a few years later the Arts Advocacy Week to a whole month, because so many of our members were doing things outside of the 1 week timeline. And so today, after COVID, we decided to reinstate Harlem Arts Advocacy Month, and we're going to continue to do the work.
Wow, that's quite an extensive history. I just wanted to hone in on a couple of instrumental people that a lot of people may not be aware of, because as you mentioned, this was founded quite some time ago by some leading artists that you may want to mention initially, before even the Harlem Arts Alliance was officially formed.
Well, we were fortunate that some of the other organizations that I mentioned, for example, Dance Theater of Harlem, they sent their person, and out of that, she helped me formulate the document to
Mhm.
formalize what we were doing, and she documented all the meetings. Her name is Donna Walker Coon, who is a lawyer, but she was also a dancer at Dance Theater of Harlem. The other person from Dance Theater of Harlem who believed in what I was doing, her name is Marcia Sells. Marcia Sells also was a dancer with Dance Theater of Harlem, who also became a lawyer. But these were some of the people who used to go to those meetings with me. And it was just good that we could be together. There were people from Columbia University, people from City College, uh, uh, Frank Silvera's Writers Workshop, New Federal Theater, Woody King's organization, the National Black Theater Company with Barbara Ann Tear. There were companies and leaders who wanted to see the growth of an art service organization, because sitting down and all of us talking together was very welcoming to all of us, because through that relationship, we found out that we weren't in this by ourselves, that there were others that we could share information with and get support. And that's how the Harlem Arts Alliance grew.
Right. And is that what you're hoping to continue with the Harlem Arts Alliance?
Well, the original concept was to bring arts practitioners together to validate the work that they were doing. They don't have big contracts, but they're validated by the community. One of the companies I like to always reference is a dance company headed by Robin Williams called the Uptown Dance Academy. The work that she does with those young people over the last 20 plus odd years is phenomenal. She's never gotten the kind of support that Dance Theater of Harlem or the other schools have gotten. And there were other dance companies preceding her. But the work was phenomenal. And it was a pathway of people coming out of their programs going downtown to get jobs in major companies. And it's things like that. And there are other people who have done that kind of grassroots work, who do it for the benefit of the community and not for the publicity of what they do, but with a real commitment. So on this go round, what I wanted to do is to just highlight a few of the past members of the Harlem Arts Alliance, give the community a sense of what's going on, to look in 2023 of having monthly or quarterly meetings again, where we can all sit down and exchange information about what's important in arts and culture.
So in that sense, the mission of bringing the arts organizations and artists together on a monthly basis to network and support each other is still going to be presented going forward.
We're going to make the determination if it's going to be monthly or quarterly.
Okay.
Because again, it takes a lot of organizing to do that. And because we're starting up, I don't want to be overly ambitious. I want to make sure that people are in place. A lot of arts advocacy work requires dedicated volunteers.
Right.
Dedicated members. So there's a whole list of things that we have to look at. But the brand is alive. The brand HAA is alive. So we want to put something on the plate so that people can at least go get information and register and share with us what they're doing.
So when you say you want to keep the brand alive, what would you say the current mission is at this time?
Well, the current mission is a resuscitation. We want to keep it alive by doing and putting a spotlight on some of the members and what they're doing. And I think through that way, you're not beating and soliciting. People will see the work and say, oh, wow, how can I be involved? Or I'm interested. It's about the work. I'm not going on a recruitment campaign. We've done all of that, and things have changed. People have changed. The community has changed. So we're exploring other kinds of ways that the brand can attract attention and get the support of other organizations to say, hey, I remember that you guys used to do that. I'm Dan State of Harlem, Voza, and we have a plan, program that could fit in nicely for Harlem Arts Alliance members. Those are the kind of things. Members will start coming forward and using us as a resource for some of the things that they would like to do.
So membership is still ongoing and active. So if people are interested in learning more about these activities going forward, they can join the membership.
Yeah, they can go to the website, harlemaa.org. Right now, there's no fee to becoming a member, but that will change later on. But if they're interested, they should sign up so that we can put them in our projection of when we will be more formalized in terms of our goals for 2023, 2024.
Yes, and I remember having been a relatively active participant, certainly before COVID, that you would also have people present their activities, which was obviously excellent opportunity to promote and publicize what these organizations and artists were doing. That sounds like something that you might be able to continue.
We're not going to change. Yeah, we're not going to change the format.
Right.
So that format and that formula was good for us, and it was unique. And others have now replicated it. The Asian American Arts Alliance has done it. There is another organization in Flushing, Queens, who came to our meetings and then they started it. There was another group in Brooklyn and they started their alliance, but they saw value in the way we programmed our meetings where, yes, there's talks and information, but the most important aspect of the meeting was the networking and the actual seeing what other organizations were doing physically on the stage. If you were a visual artist and you were working on a painting project, you could do that. If you were a filmmaker and you had a clip on, a video clip on something that you were working on, you could actually show it in our meetings. So a lot of the meetings was a half an hour to 45 minutes of introductions, and the rest of the meeting was members performing and sharing with all of us what they were working on the creative side.
And this, I believe, was primarily for the small, at the time, at least in the early years, for the small community arts institutions and artists, as you've mentioned, that might have been overlooked, that don't have the budgets to do the advertising or hire publicists. But in the latter years, even the Broadway shows would be coming forward to make presentations because they saw this as a target audience they were trying to reach, which is the African-American community. So what would you say is the importance and significance of having this network at this time of the Harlem Arts Alliance?
Well, Broadway has put a lot of focus on communities of color to resuscitate Broadway. And they are extending their reach in terms of where they go and who they network or partner with in order to get their messages out. With the Harlem Arts Alliance, we never reached out to Broadway or any of those institutions as much as they reached out to us. They thought it was beneficial for them to become members of the Alliance so that they could also present what they were doing. And especially when they had shows with people of color in it, And so and through that, they were also able to meet the local artists who were not on their calendar or on their radar and see the work that they were doing. And in some instances, they formed their own relationships. And that was what we wanted to see happen.
I also wanted to mention for people, I don't hear it that much, but I know when I initially was introduced to Harlem Arts Advocacy Month, which, by the way, is celebrating its 15th anniversary, that it was, I thought, an outgrowth of Arts Advocacy Month.
Arts Advocacy Month was an initiative of the New York State Senate and the New York State Assembly, where they would hold hearings on budgets for arts advocacy for the New York State Council on the Arts.
What would you say about the importance of exercising your rights to vote?
Advocacy, intelligence, motivation, involvement are keywords that we all need to think about. Things don't happen by chance. There is groups. If we look at the highest level, which is government, and we understand the political parties and what's happening now between the Republicans, the Democrats, the progressives, the kind of legislation that you might not, or people might not have thought about years ago that it would impact them, they now see that it directly impacts them. In order to make change, you have to be involved. And if you are involved, that means you have a voice.
And we'll see you again next week on Inside New York.